Welcome back to another episode of The Hard Truth. It's that hard truth that you don't want to hear if you want to be successful. And listen, one of the biggest things that we run into with in the fitness game, and honestly in life in general, is it's a question we ask when we sit down and talk to people for the very first time. Who is your biggest cheerleader? And for most people that are married, that answer hopefully tends to be their spouse. And I've told people in 16 years of doing this, I've often seen that the biggest saboteur of somebody's fitness journey is the person they share the cupboard with. And it's not from a malicious standpoint or anything along those lines. It's like, hey, baby, I love you the way you are. Do you want a honey bun so you're in a better mood? And so I was pumped to have an opportunity to have a couple on for a change. So you guys can, give feedback and tips and pointers for people that are trying to navigate this together. And so Sean, Ashley, very, very pumped that you guys made time for us to jump on. So welcome to coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Now, with you guys, I actually wanted to just really start, I think, what I think is kind of a unique point is that not necessarily unique in that it doesn't happen. It actually happens to people all the time. But we haven't had a chance to actually engage with somebody in the moment that is happening to them. You started off in fitness. You were making great progress. And then I'm not going to say a life threw you a curveball because it wasn't like you didn't know it was happening, but you find out you're pregnant. Mm-hmm. And so what were the emotions of that? Because you were actually, obviously you want to have a child, yeah. But at the same time, like you're starting to see progress in yourself. What was that like for that to actually come to fruition?
Yeah, it was a big mindset adjustment because then the goal had to shift from, me losing, weight that I put on at a low point in my life into, being excited to actually gain weight for the first time ever because that means the baby's growing healthily. Pregnancy in general has been a real process of kind of healing my relationship with my body because, women get a lot of messages about, you've got to be this like stick thin Victoria's Secret model kind of build or you're not beautiful. So it took the shift from like, being happy that my body was strong to being happy that my body can sustain a second life and not just mine. And kind of coming to peace with all the changes that have to happen to your body when you're growing a human being.
Do you think you came to peace with that? And then what was that process like?
I think so, because I was able to stay active during the majority of the pregnancy. I really did have to dial it back in the third trimester. But, modifying exercises and programs to meet the needs of my changing body was a really empowering experience. And I tried not to view it as a setback and more as like, this is a season of my life, this is what it looks like right now. When the baby's out, it'll look different. Before the baby, it looked different. And this is just part of change. So kind of seeing the need to make adjustments as an empowering decision point rather than like a setback was the mindset shift that needed to happen in order for me to make peace with what was going to happen through pregnancy.
Now remind me, how long before this had you started working on?
So with Soldier Fit, it was just 3 months.
Yeah, we joined in January.
But I was active prior to Soldier Fit. I had been running, long distance endurance races for almost 9 years. So fitness wasn't new to me, but strength training was. So,
yes. Yep. And boot camps.
And boot camps were new to me too. But it was like the high intensity cardio with adding in, big compound lifts. That was only 3 months. And, I didn't really feel like I was losing a lot of strength in the beginning because if you're going from like you're doing bicep curls with 50 pounds and then you have to drop it down to 20, that's a bit of a shock, but I was still working my way up. So I just kind of stopped where it was safe for the pregnancy. And then I'll continue building once I'm cleared to begin again after the baby's here.
Now, Sean, for you as, you're yoked, big old dude, muscles, tight shirts.
Yeah.
Right. How did you as a husband, soon to be father, like, how did you see your role shift in supporting her in her fitness journey? Was there any trepidation about whether or not you should say, hey, okay, pull back some, whether you should just keep your mouth shut, or whether you should be like, oh, go try to lift what you can lift. How did you navigate that?
So are you talking about in terms of fitness or like our relationship
No,
in
like just
general?
like support role. A support
Support
role. Because
role.
listen, I've never been very good. Actually, I don't know if anybody, I'm sure there's someone out there, unicorns do exist, that have been able to train their significant other or their spouse or even work out with their significant other or spouse when it comes to doing the programming. Because it's like, dog, I don't feel like it today. I don't feel like listening to you, right? How did you manage that? Like, was there a point in time when she was like, you thought maybe she was trying to do too much and you want to be like, hey, pull back some? Did you bite your tongue? Like, how did you, for all the soon to be fathers out here, how did they not die?
How did you have a hell week is the question.
Yeah, I hear you. So in the beginning, like I was all for like, yeah, like let's get your discipline down. Let's get the routine while it's early in the pregnancy. Like there's no real risks against weightlifting or intense cardio. But as the beginning of the third trimester, when I was watching her doing walking lunges with tires over her head as part of Hell Week, I'm thinking like, okay, that's pretty badass. That's inspiring, but that's probably not good long term. So that was her last boot camp. I actually told her, I'm like, I think you're done after this point, because there had been a couple instances during the boot camps. She was watching her heart rate on her Apple Watch, and you were getting short of breath. You're starting to get
and my heart rate
lightheaded a
was
little
getting
bit.
up over 200, which is not sustainable for
So
me.
she and I would be in a class together, and I'd kind of keep my eye on her from a distance. And if she was taking a break, like to the side, run up to her. I'm like, hey, everything good? And she'll say, yeah, I just need to catch my breath. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So like I didn't hover. Just a quick check-ins like, hey, what do you need? So everything's good? Okay, then I go back to my workout.
So that when the time came that it was time to stop the high intensity, he actually brought the doctor into that conversation. And he's like, look, you can argue with me, but you can't argue with the OB. Like, you've got to stop.
And what do you think has been the benefits? I mean, obviously now we're, like you said, we go through these stages, trimester 1, 2, 3. Like, what do you think there's been a benefit to the fact that you started strength training before it, even though it was only 3 months? Do you think it's been a benefit that you've stayed active? Like, and how did you do that? How did you do that with dealing with, like, I don't know if you had morning sickness or any of that type of stuff?
So the first thing that I want to note is the 3 month, when I got my blood drawn in, early 2022, before I was almost a year before I was a Soldier Fit member, my A1C was pre-diabetic. When I got my A1C drawn almost 4 months after starting the strength training with Soldier Fit, my A1C was back down into normal range. Good. And so all I did really before the Soldier Fit was, really slow, alternating running and walking. And then I added the strength training when I was ready, and just 4 months of that.
That was a game changer.
Huge game changer. And I've had zero issues with blood sugar and diabetes during this pregnancy. Now, gestational diabetes is mostly placenta related and not genetic, or not like affected as much by weight. You can be at a very healthy weight and still get gestational diabetes. But as far as staying active during the pregnancy goes, like my, pelvic girdle pain has been much better managed. I haven't really had a lot of low back pain. Just as far as the discomfort that comes with a growing baby, it's been mild compared to a lot of people that I know. And my doctors all attribute that to having been consistently active during the pregnancy.
They all seem to be pretty impressed every time you mentioned it in those visits. I've been to a majority of those, and every time she drops like, oh yeah, we go to Soldier Fit 3 times a week, they're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to skip whatever lecture I was about to give you. You're good to go.
They have to note in my chart, because I am still overweight, even without the pregnancy, that they counseled me on maintaining a healthy weight, but there's never been a real conversation about it, because they're like, you already have a plan. Like, you have Danny, you are good. Like, keep doing that, and we'll discuss it after the baby's here.
How have you managed to work around the times that you just don't feel like going?
So there's two ways I do that. One is the freedom to either sign up for a boot camp or go to the gym side and do something maybe a little bit lighter as far as intensity goes. The freedom to pick the workout helps, because like, okay, if you can't handle a boot camp today because the nausea is just getting to you, like, just drive over there, say hi to your friends, and just walk laps around the building. Like, that's still showing up. And so recognizing that good enough, it can be good enough on some of those days, was huge, because then it's like, you're not throwing in the towel just because you're having a rough day. And that'll apply to pregnancy or not. Like, you can't make progress if you don't show up for yourself. And whether your showing up looks like you're rocking it in a boot camp, or you're doing these massive lifts and you're increasing your 1 rep max, not every day is going to look like that. So sometimes it's just, I'm going to take a brisk walk and have some active recovery time.
And that social aspect is great too, to get you in there. Like, if you're not feeling up to it, you're like, well, so-and-so's there. Yeah. They're looking forward to seeing me. So that, like, that feeling that you're kind of letting somebody else down other than yourself makes it a little harder to quit.
And also, he shows up to the gym on days that we're not doing boot camps at 5:30 a.m. He shows up around 5, and I'm usually there about 20 to 30 minutes after him.
Yep.
So I'm like, if he's expecting me to go and he's already left the house and I don't show up, well, that's not going to be a very fun evening for me when I get home from work.
It's fine.
So,
you're a good battle buddy.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, he's a cheerleader. He's an accountability partner, and like, he knows when I need to take a step back or when I'm just making an excuse because I don't feel like it. And so having that person that knows you well enough to differentiate between, okay, like, you're pregnant, you need to take it easy, and like, maybe you can push yourself a little bit harder. That balance, and that having someone that has a differentiation for you really kept me going, especially during the second trimester when I had the energy and I just was trying to, sleep in a little bit more.
The one thing you said is, like, I'll go there even if it's just to walk around. Is it important that you found to actually leave the house in effort to do something? Like, a lot of people go, why don't you just walk at the house? For you, what would you say to those people?
I mean, if it works for you, absolutely 100% do it. But I have found for myself that if all I have to do is go out and walk around my neighborhood, I'm going to put that off and put that off and put that off. But if I'm like, I have friends that show up at Soldier Fit Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. So if I'm not there and I don't see them, then they ask where I've been. So that aspect of leaving the house and establishing that routine of, like, going to this place to accomplish this task really keeps me, motivated for it, because I'm seeing Melissa, I'm seeing Jen, I'm seeing Beth, and all of the folks that take that 5:30 class. And so the act of leaving the house means, okay, if I've come all this way, I can't half-ass it now. But if you have that, intrinsic motivation to do it at your house, like, by all means do it. There's no wrong way to reach your goals. It's just, this is what works for me. Leaving the house works better for me.
And that's something that she and I have actually talked about. Once the baby's here, we both find it important to still make the time to work out. So we're going to have a talk, like, okay, which mornings do you want to hit the gym? Which mornings will I stay home with the baby, and vice versa, so that we can both have our, not alone time, but our time at the gym. Just having that separation, having a dedicated space to work out, and it not be home is a big psychological thing, at least just for us. Like, those who have home gyms, like, more power to you, but I like actually the ritual of going someplace, getting in the mindset of putting in the work.
And the community aspect of Soldier Fit is why, like, commercial gyms never worked for me. Like, I stopped going because there was nobody messaging me on Facebook later saying, hey, I missed you today. So.
Yep.
Well, you guys actually led into my next question, which is going to be, how do you plan to keep this up when the time comes that now there's another person that gets a vote in the House, right? When you're looking at that, like, what have you guys strategized as far as, like, everybody says everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. But for starting for you guys, like, what are you planning? Like, what have you talked about so far?
So it's been great. Like, the past couple months, we love kind of setting a game plan for what we're going to do. But like you said, all it takes is one punch and that plan goes out the window. But
everyone's a perfect parent until they have kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We have no idea what we're doing, but we're going to do our best. But to kind of tie into a question that you asked me a little while back, like, what I can do to support her, or how do I support her in terms, like, once the baby's here, the way I look at it, it's my job to keep her alive, and it's her job to keep the baby alive. So I am going to be taking on the meal preps. I'm going to be taking on the laundry. I'm going to have a very domestic role.
Yeah.
And you are going to be keeping the baby alive. So it's kind of tiered.
Yeah. And then
the baby's on the stool,
yeah.
You're the seat, and I'm the legs.
And then as that shifts, this is where, like, I think the things that are cliche for a reason, but it really just comes down to communication within the marriage, because, you know, as the baby's needs change, what we're able to do also changes. So, like, in the beginning, he's going to be, you know, eating very frequently and sleeping a lot, and then his wake times will go up. And his feeding times will go down. And so then that gives us a little bit more freedom to work with. And so the important thing for us is going to be to constantly be having conversations with each other about what I need, what he needs, what the baby needs, and how we're going to juggle all of that, because it's going to be in flux for the rest of our lives.
Do you guys think you're going to do one and done? You think you're going to go for
one and done?
I have had a very rough pregnancy with the symptoms.
Yeah, you have. You've had a rough go of it.
So I've had hyperemesis gravidarum, which is, for those who don't know, is severe pregnancy-related nausea and vomiting that goes beyond morning sickness. In my first trimester, I lost 22 pounds, some from working out, but a lot of it from just not being able to keep food down for weeks at a time. And so I ended up in the hospital with severe dehydration, on IV fluids and IV medications a couple of times. And it led my immune system to being susceptible to some infections that led to some issues. And I'm 36 weeks pregnant now, and I'm still taking the medication for the nausea, or I can't eat food. So that's been really hard mentally to kind of get behind the idea of doing that again before I see what the first one's like. And for the last week, I've had prodromal labor symptoms, which is like fake labor that feels like real labor, but you're not progressing. And so I just have contractions and I do nothing. So it's a mind game for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, never say never. If we ended up, you know, pregnant again, it would be a blessing for sure. But right now it's just too soon to think about doing this again.
The first one is always a trick. The first one comes like, this isn't too rough. This isn't too hard. You know, you get the second one, it's like, wow, where did you come from? Like, you're literally, how did you come from the same people? It doesn't work out that way. So have you thought as far ahead this early as to what your goal is going to be after the baby comes? And like, what is your fitness goal going to be? What are you going to be looking to do?
You know, being at a healthy weight has been a goal of mine for a long time. And it's one that I haven't achieved since I was in my early 20s. So I gained a lot of weight after I got laid off from my dream job, or what I thought was my dream job, because now my career is better than I ever could have imagined it. But when I got laid off, I had tied my entire self-worth into what I did for a living. So when I lost that, I kind of became unmoored, and I gained 70 pounds in 5 months. I've gone down 30 to 35 and then back up 40, like yo-yoing for years. And so I haven't found that consistency that's going to keep that weight off. So that's the primary goal, is getting back to that healthy weight, knowing that healthy weight and proportion is going to look different after having given birth to a child. So it's kind of exciting to see what my body's going to look like when I recover from giving birth and I, you know, get back into, you know, my fitness journey.
What do you think your first goal would be? Just the consistency? The
consistency is going to be the first goal. It's just like getting on a routine that works for me to make sure that I'm investing in myself and taking care of myself, because I'm at a high risk for postpartum depression because I have regular depression. And I want my son to grow up seeing, you know, his mom and his dad taking care of themselves as individuals so that we can invest properly in him as well and instill those values in him so that he doesn't grow up having, you know, an unhealthy relationship with his food or his body.
That's awesome. So when you guys get to the point that you guys go and you say you guys plan to do a switch hit, one go one day, one go the other day, and who got to pick the day?
I think that's going to depend on what the baby needs.
We haven't really picked the day yet. I mean, I'm probably going to be the morning person.
Well, you have more flexibility to work out in the afternoons than I do.
That's true. I work remotely. Like, you see me show up sometimes at like 12 p.m.
Random.
2
Yeah.
p.m. Random. Yeah.
Yeah. So mine, it's really going to be like some days I'll do the 5:30 a.m. and some days it'll be the 5:30 p.m. because those are my options.
Yeah. Maybe you will be the morning person.
So,
I hit an afternoon one while he's at daycare or something.
But if you have
we
something
haven't really
yeah.
figured it out. We just have an idea of what we want to do.
I don't even, at this point, we have a daycare, but I don't know what time drop off is supposed to be. I have no
Okay. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how nervous are you guys?
14.
14?
I'm actually less nervous now because she mentioned like the premature labor thing.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the hospital last Tuesday. It was kind of like a trial run.
Mm-hmm.
So like we went the route we were going to go. We thought he was coming.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, this is the day I meet my son.
Mm-hmm.
And then it didn't happen.
And that didn't happen.
So now,
when does he do?
What's that?
What does he do?
December 15th. So this was on.
Okay. So yeah, so
this was exactly
right
a month before he was due.
So I've kind of already seen 80% of what's going to happen except the birth. So that kind of helped my nerves. I'm like a 7, solid 7.
Okay. And then what's going to be? Go ahead. What you said?
I'm sorry. I'm just nervous about like I'd like to breastfeed for the benefits of that, and I have no idea how to do that. So that's where most of my nerves are coming from. Like once he's here, how do I feed this kid?
It's crazy, with River and Willow. I mean, that's when I learned that a lot of kids don't latch.
Yeah.
And that boggled, that was like mind blowing to me. Like it just makes no sense. Like they literally won't latch. And and you're like, damn, well, dog, like what do we do back in the day then? Right? Because
they died. They died.
Natural selection right there.
And I will tell you that with River, she had a brief NICU scare, and then we were in the hospital for like 3-4 days. I got bronchitis. Jen got bronchitis. Jen had mastitis, right?
Oh no!
And the whole breast pumping thing is like, it is the most anticlimactic event of all time. Like everyone's miserable. You get for all that, we did all that for that, and like you
like
just
30
clean
minutes
it, whatever.
And you get an ounce.
it just is thing. So that part is always I'm not gonna call it fun. It's a good learning curve. And as a dude, I'll say this now. As a guy, at least my experience is, you feel really worthless for the first 6 weeks at least.
I'm prepared
because there's really no use for you. Like there's just like, you don't produce milk, right? The only thing you can do is like, I'm going to switch off diapers or probably, wash the bottles or the baby faces.
Yep.
But then, my experience was like, once Jen went back to work after the maternity leave, that was like the first time that like, boom, we bonded the whole 9 yards. So what is going to be what are your goals as you're looking forward to, Sean, as you get on the other side of this?
I think the most important thing for me, like the workouts are going to be random. They're going to be intermittent. I might not hit 3 days a week, depending on what's going on. I think the most important thing for me that really there's no excuse that I wouldn't be able to follow is the meal tracking. Because I've realized it's very easy for me to eat way over my BMR, and it doesn't feel like it. Like there's a lot of calorically dense foods out there. I mean, I'll be honest, like I've had a little bit of pregnancy brain the last couple months. Ashley has had trouble keeping food down. So that means the stuff she does eat is simple: cheese, bread, not the best stuff. And I've used that as an excuse, like, oh, that's fun, I'll have some too. So I've put on a little bit of weight, and I realized, oh, wow, this is what happens when I don't track. So as of this past week, getting on that again, so that when the baby comes, I'm already in a routine, and it's going to be a little more difficult to break that. If I try to start a new routine while the baby's here, that's just going to make it harder. So actually tracking the food in my Fitness Pal, that's my goal. Yeah. And I can build the workouts on top of that.
Well, I think y'all are due for having one like at the best time, right? Like it's December. I mean, it's not gonna be great for his birthday moving forward. He's gonna get like one set of gifts, right there on that side. But it's a great time because you basically have the dead week at the end of December where nobody does anything. I don't even know why. Like there's like time is completely spaced out. So it would be a good time for you guys to get settled in and put in.
Yeah,
it's a good way to look at it.
And I told him, so he was talking about Soldier Fit's doing the 12 Days of Fitness Challenge in December. And he was like, maybe I shouldn't do it because we could have, the baby at any time. And I said, would it be good for your mental health to have that to work towards during the month of December when our whole life is changing? It's like, it's 12 workouts in 24 days. Would that be good for your mental health? And he said, well, yeah. He said, then do it. Yeah. Because it's important for him to invest in his mental health and to make sure that, this adjustment that we're about to go through is, not pulling you into a depressive state. Yeah, just as important it is for me.
We gotta both take care of ourselves.
Correct.
And exercise is a huge mental health factor for me. I when I'm not working out, I'm not consistent. I just feel lethargic and like the self-esteem isn't there, and it just snowballs into other negative emotions. So a routine is important for me. So I appreciate
and
allowing me to do that.
Really, at the end of the day, his commitment when he goes to a boot camp or even does the longest it is from door to being showered and clean and back home is about 2 hours. Like, we'll survive 2 hours just because, like, I need you to be yourself. And if you're feeling like you're falling out of that routine and you're not taking care of yourself, then neither of us are going to operate at our best.
With the baby coming, that doesn't mean we should sacrifice our health. We have to look after ourselves. And exercise is part of hygiene. It's part of health.
It's going to look a little different in the beginning from what it looked like before. And then we'll get a rhythm, and it'll be fine.
We'll tackle it.
So if you guys were to give, and I appreciate you guys taking time, if you guys were to give your best advice for couples that are trying to navigate, hey, I want to start getting in shape. And regardless, I mean, you guys obviously have a big life change coming up, which is with the child, but there's always life changes. There's another child. There's a new career, a new job, selling a house. There's always going to be something in life that we've got to navigate. There's never going to be that perfect time. What advice would you guys give to young couples that are getting going and then like, listen, like, hey, it's time to take care of myself? How do you recommend people accomplish that?
What do you think?
So for the couples aspect, be honest with your spouse. Like you were talking at the beginning, your spouse could be your biggest cheerleader or your biggest saboteur. It just depends on, how you guys approach the change. So be honest with your spouse about what you need. And then when they're honest with you about what they need, respond in kind, because it's really a partnership, and they should be your cheerleader. They should also be your teammate. So keep that communication open about what your goals are and what you need from your spouse to help you accomplish them. And you'll be able to work together better, and it won't feel like they're holding you back at all, because nobody wants to do that to someone that they love.
I want you to expound upon something that you just said there. You said they should be your cheerleader, but also your teammate. What did you mean by that?
So, Sean and I, we try, to approach any problem, any change that we face as a couple as like we are doing it together. So even if, his macros will look different from mine, or like right now he can, eat more varied foods than I can keep down. It doesn't mean that I should be sitting here saying like, oh, well, because I want, pizza, because that's all that's staying down right now, that you can't, have, your dinner. That's a little bit more balanced and a little bit more protein heavy and a little bit, more suited to the goals that you have. And so like you had said on another call once, the only time you should be cooking separate meals, is if the person who you're cooking for is too young to use a stove. But sometimes, you might need something different out of the meal than your spouse is getting. And that needs to be a conversation so that one person's not doing all the labor and getting resentful that their spouse isn't, supporting them. So like if your marriage is a partnership, then they're not just cheering you on, they are in it with you. And that doesn't mean they have to do exactly what you do and eat exactly the same way you eat and work out the exact same way that you work out. But it does mean that they have to have an active role in supporting you towards your goals. And you need to actively tell them what you need from them to make that happen, so that they're not feeling like they have to guess.
Awesome. Sean, anything to add?
kind of building on that, just because you mentioned advice for a couple together who are both trying to get into working out, losing weight, getting healthier. Just if they're both aligned like that with that same goal, I think that's the most important thing. I think it would be more difficult if, and we've actually lived through this in the past, where only one of us is on that path and the other person is not and has no interest in it and kind of doesn't understand why they're even doing it. So that's an instance where we used to actually not eat separately, but have separate meals. Mm-hmm. Like I went on a really hard cutting diet in like 2020, 2021. And I realized I didn't even tell you that I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And you were just kind of questioning, why the hell is he just cooking chicken breast and eating broccoli and you'd be eating mac and cheese or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that actually built a little bit of resentment. Mm-hmm. Because we didn't feel like a cohesive unit at all. So
I wouldn't have eaten the unseasoned chicken and steamed broccoli. But
I've gotten better.
You have gotten better.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have eaten the bland food, but I would have been able to, understand your goals more and, maybe cook something with a little bit more flavor that would still meet your macros.
Looking back on that, if I could redo it, like your partner doesn't have to be on the same path as you. Like it's great if you're both looking to get in shape, awesome. But if one isn't ready to do it yet, if you can explain the why to them, why you're doing it and what they can do to help you, like I would say it's love for them to support you in that.
Yeah.
That would be love. They might not necessarily agree, but they should be, hopefully they would respect the fact, hey, you're trying to better yourself. That's awesome. I want you to be better. I'm going to support you in this. And if that means we have separate meals for a little bit, hey, cool.
And I want to piggyback off of what he was saying about when I wasn't ready for the fitness journey to start for me, but he was, very dialed in. When during all of that, he was encouraging me to start a fitness journey of my own. But I
think I was encouraging in the wrong way.
In the beginning it was, and then you understood me, and then it worked. So like the difference between the beginning of our relationship before we were married, and now was, I initially felt like he was trying to change me to make me look better, and he didn't think that I was attractive as I was when I had put on the weight. I was very insecure about that. But when the conversation about it shifted from like away from looking better to like, I know you can feel better and I know that you're capable of, doing all of these like really incredibly strong things, because mentally you're there, but physically we can get you there. It moved from feeling like he was trying to correct a deficiency in me into trying to encourage me to be my best. And that was a huge shift in just the way the conversation happened. And I was more open to hearing it. And that's when I started running. So it was like, it never looked the way that he did fitness, because he was always really into the lifting side, and I wasn't until Soldier Fit. But he's like, just find something that works for you, something that makes you feel good and makes you excited to move your body.
That is weightlifting now.
And it's weightlifting now, but it wasn't in the beginning.
Nope.
And then supporting me through that evolution, because if your partner is telling, like, if your partner feels like you're trying to correct something that's wrong with them, the response could start out as defensiveness, because it's the natural human response when somebody tells you that you're wrong. So that's why, like, coming from if you have that understanding in the beginning that you're teammates and you're in this together, then you're cheering each other on because you're both invested in the same thing, and that is being the best spouse, parent, partner that you can possibly be.
Awesome. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking the time to jump on the call with us. We are looking forward to, about 20, 30 days from now, having another little one. Okay. Mm-hmm. No offense. Hope looks like mom. Okay. Hey, but
I hope so too.
The truth is they always look like dad at the very beginning, no matter what. Then after that, they morph to the mom. But hey, guys, I appreciate what you're doing. I hope you enjoy your turkey day. For everyone else that's got something out of this episode, by all means, give us a comment, a like, a review, subscribe, and share so that it helps other people that are starting their fitness journey. As always, keep living head down, horns up. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye.